Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates and Ethiopia are now official members of the BRICS bloc. The membership took effect yesterday, completing the bloc's expansion that was confirmed during the August summit held in Johannesburg. For what this means for BRICS and its standing in the world, we are joined by political analyst Professor Zondi. Prof. Zondi, a very good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon and good afternoon to your viewers.
Prof, before we talk about the new members, let's take one step back and talk about the Argentina factor. Because initially, they were supposed to be part of the bloc, part of the new members, and that did not happen. What do you make of that?
It was expected. As soon as President Miele took over power, won the elections, we knew that this was likely to be an outcome. He held a position that wants to move Argentina closer to the West rather than closer to the developing countries. And he's made a calculation similar to President Bolsonaro in Brazil in the past that said the future, the greater future for Argentina will be it moving closer under the umbrella of the United States. There's greater investment there, there's greater trade opportunities there, and there is also affinity politically because he comes from the right wing, he is a libertarian, and all of that. So we always expected, because he also had huge difficulties with the growing influence of China in the Argentinian economy, and has difficulties with Brazil, their neighbors, the old neighboring difficulties that they have. So we expected that he would not be applying for the membership. He would not be taking up the offer of an opportunity to be a member of BRICS. He stayed true to his manifesto during the pre-election. But whether this will help Argentina in its big economic doldrums right now with a high inflation, with a big balance of payment issues, with huge economic challenges, it needs investment from the biggest economies in the world, and that is China and the United States, by the way. But we'll have to watch and see how he navigates this and whether time would change it.
So let's now look at the new members. If you look at it in a broader picture, this represents 42% of the world's population. What does this mean in the bigger scheme of things? Particularly if you look at some of the issues that came, that de-dollarization, what this means for a superpower like the United States.
Because the BRICS exists principally to strengthen economic relations among themselves. The addition of a country such as Saudi Arabia that registered almost 9% economic growth rate. The best performers last year were hovering about 4-5%. They registered a whopping 9% economic growth rate, the biggest oil economy. We have UAE that registered about 4% of growth rate. It's one of those economies that are diversified in a very strong way. And then, of course, you have a much smaller Ethiopia. To increase the numbers of economies that it can build relations with means that the people of BRICS have greater opportunities to attract more investment, to attract more trade, to cooperate a little stronger, to access new logistics, to access new energy sources, and other things. So the economic logic of it is huge. But it also means that these countries themselves have something to benefit from these collective countries that they are finding, the 5 countries that accounted for 40% of the global GDP, and they now also having a foothold in a huge market that they have. Secondly, politically, it simply means that now two of the major powers in what is usually called Middle East, or sometimes called the West Asia, Iran and Saudi Arabia, are now part of the BRICS. So now the BRICS represent that region it never had before. And secondly, it also means the political clout of the BRICS increases as it gets more countries that individually have a clout in and of themselves. It enables the BRICS to speak with greater confidence, greater legitimacy, and perhaps with greater influence. It enables it to shape the direction of the global public good, major decisions about the world, from environment to energy to economic transition and all sorts of issues. It has gained a little bit more weight. It needs to harness it though, because it's not an automatic promotion.
Prof. Zondi, the other point that came in, and many analysts say, well, it's not really that much of a big deal, because even if you look at the West, there's many other issues of human rights violations. If you look at some of the members, when it comes to the issues of human rights, particularly women's rights, they are not really in a good standing. Do you think that has a bearing and will affect the relations of BRICS and maybe the association of other countries like South Africa that has a better record of women's rights?
There's a mixed record in BRICS. There are countries with very strong human rights record. There are countries with checkered human rights record. It is the same with the G7, which is led by United States. Some countries with a very good human rights record, and some countries with a difficult one and a bad one. It's just normal in international relations. Countries come together because they have shared interests. They can build some economic value. They can also enhance their political wealth. Their character is what we work on over a period of time. And the human rights record of individual countries doesn't change the human rights record of the collective. What I mean, if Saudi Arabia's human rights record in relation to women is poor, it doesn't then mean that now South Africa will now also have to withdraw its rights to women. No. These are individual countries' character that perhaps by coming together will help improve those that lag behind. Because one of the important central tenets of BRICS is to improve democratic governance among BRICS countries. So as these countries have discussions, they may persuade each other to improve economic governance record, just as those that have big problems in economy, like South Africa, like Ethiopia now, and like Brazil, may also be helped by those with a better economic record, the same with a governance record. They have to improve each other, and that's the reason why they are together. They are called a diplomatic club.
So with that said, I mean, moving into the economics side of it, we touched briefly on the issue of de-dollarization. Is a BRICS currency possible, looking at how different these countries are in terms of how strong or weak they are in comparison, looking at their economies, as it were?
Let's just say this very upfront. The BRICS has never mentioned de-dollarization. They've never said it's their agenda, de-dollarization. It is others who say so. What they have said, though, is that they want to promote what almost now over 190 countries now, over 180 countries are now talking about, that must have diverse reserve currencies for each country. So if Turkey trades with Japan, they must be able to trade both in the dollar, in the euro, in the yen, and in the Turkish dollar. So they should be able to have a variety of currencies that they can trade with, depending on what it makes sense at that particular time. So that is the talk globally. And the BRICS countries are also talking about the same idea, that the Brazilian reais, the South African rand, the Indian rupee, and other currencies of the BRICS should be used as reserve currencies when these countries trade with each other. And I guess now adding the 5 new currencies as well into that code, so that it will promote them in being used as currencies of trade. Whether the BRICS wants to have a currency of their own, that's a discussion that we still have to see. what we know is that they are promoting the local currencies of individual BRICS countries so that they are used in trade and investment involving those countries that own those currencies.
And just finally then, Prof. Zondi, the question becomes, what does this mean for South Africa individually as a country? Because many have said that, well, we are but a small pawn, small part of this BRICS. Now with the expansion, what does it mean?
I think we're the smallest economy when there were 5 countries. We're now no longer the smallest economy. There are like 2 other smaller economies behind us. We've now moved to the middle of the BRICS. So there are huge opportunities in terms of access to trade, access to investment, and access to resources, access to asset services in order to achieve the 5% plus economic growth that the National Development Plan requires South Africa to achieve on a yearly basis. It also means that it has access to these now 8 other countries that it can use to harness its positions with in relation to climate change negotiations, to implementation of SDG, but also in relation to big political questions across the world. South Africa could use this and ride on the greatness of this BRIC power in order to enhance its own individual position and all that. But it also comes with risks that if this thing fails, South Africa will also take the cost that come with it. But it also means that it has to compete with other fellow BRICS countries that are also trying to use BRICS to marshal themselves up. So it has to sharpen its ability to compete. It has to sharpen its idea to identify very strategic opportunities. But it also comes with the cost of being lumped together with countries that may have a poor record in the world, whether it be economically or politically and other words. But if you weigh the costs against the benefits are much greater if properly harnessed.
Prof. Zondi, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for taking time to speak to us. I appreciate your time and your insight.